Can you feature that awful creature? Can you feature that ugly creature? Creature features and feature features about creatures. Creature features. Now the strangest thing about this show or two is its host, Bob Wilkins, and he brings it to you. Features and creature features and more creatures and more features. And the creature's gonna get you tonight.
Welcome to your Super Ghoul station, TV2, right here in Oakland. My name is Bob Wilkins, and I'll be your host tonight for Creature Features. And the reason I'm introducing myself is that we have a lot of out-of-towners, a lot of tourists in the Bay Area this time of the year. And a couple of weeks ago, some folks were in from Des Moines, Iowa, and they watched Creature Features, and they wrote me a letter back saying, "Dear sir, a couple of weeks ago we caught your show, and they don't have anything like this in Des Moines. They said you showed a snake woman, a human blockhead, the sword swallower, you had a couple of movies and a weird cereal." And they said, "We've never seen anything like it before, and we just wondered what goes on down there in Creature Features." So I wrote them back that it's difficult to explain for someone from Des Moines what we do here every Saturday night. It's difficult to explain to someone who lives in Oakland or San Francisco who watches the show week in and week out. So anyway, we try to have some fun. We try to entertain you and sometimes inform you. For instance, tonight we have two movies, Target Earth and then The Werewolf of London will be along. But our special guest will be talking about Superman versus Spider-Man in just a minute. Then during the intermission, for you Star Trek fans, you'll meet Bruce Hyde, better known as Lieutenant Kevin Riley. He was in 2 episodes that very first season. And we've dug this guy up, and he's going to tell us about what it was like to play in Star Trek. And you'll have a chance to meet him in person tomorrow, Sunday, at the Federation Trading Post. And then we'll have a special surprise for you. I'll talk more about that as this first movie gets on, Target Earth. Target Earth is a story about a robot, an army of robots from Venus. And of course, Switzerland, known for their watches, and Venus has always been known for their robots. And so that's our first movie. It's sort of a low-budget science fiction film. At the top of the show, I want to talk about a magazine that rocked the comic book industry recently. There it is, Superman takes on Spider-Man. The big thing about this was, first time that 2 superheroes ever got together, but they're from different publishers, DC and Marvel Comics. Now that's like Macy's and Sears having a sale together. You know, it just couldn't happen. But it did happen, and the publisher of DC Comics was in town recently, Carmine Infantino, and I talked to him about Superman and Spider-Man. Carmine, it seems like to me that Superman through the years, let's see, he started in about 39.
Just about.
He's never weakened. He's always been around.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, many times comics were considered finished, over with. Mm-hmm. Well, Superman has outlived Titans like Life magazine, Look magazine. They're gone. He's still here. In fact, he's stronger than ever. He's now in every country of the Western world. And there's now a little talk about him going into Yugoslavia, Poland. There's probably breakthroughs coming there. Yeah. And there's some talk about Hong Kong and China and et cetera.
Superman behind the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting.
How did he get his start? Just real quickly.
These 2 young men, Siegel and Schuster, tried to sell it. They tried to sell it everywhere. Then they went to national periodicals, which was a company in those days that just took old newspaper strips, pasted them up into a comic book, and then put them out. Mm-hmm. They had a magazine called Detective Comics. That's where our DC comes from. They figured they were going to start another magazine because that was doing fairly well. And they had this comic strip laying on a shelf. They turned it down too, by the way, this Superman thing. And somebody said, "My God, we've got 8 pages open in this Action Comics. What about that thing, that super something?"
Just
and they
hesitated. Huh?
Yeah, they just hesitated. Well, you know, it's a little wild. It's a little way out. Well, put it in. We got nothing else. What do we care? Well, they put it in, and the explosion began.
That was it. He was on his way.
All the way from then on. It never let up.
It would seem like with the two publishing companies, DC and Marvel, that there'd be so many problems to overcome, you know, with the artists and the writers and what have you. And you have what it's going to be a blockbuster. It's a blockbuster already. Superman versus Spider-Man.
Yeah, the two arch rivals in the comic industry.
How did it come about? It would seem like you'd have to overcome so many problems.
There was. The problems were innumerable. But we sat down, we talked it out, we agreed on artist, writer.
You and Stan Lee.
Yeah, both of us. Letterer, right down the line, production people. And then when we got the first draft of the script, we looked at it, made sure everybody got co-billing, nobody got too much, nobody got too little. And we approved of everything. Then we went over the artwork, et cetera, et cetera. And it was unbelievably smooth. In fact, I was surprised. I thought there'd be problems. You know, creative people get temperamental. But everybody respected every other character, everyone else's character, and it worked beautifully, I think.
Okay, now some fans may be wondering why Superman would need any sort of help or would want to take on the Spider-Man. How do you get around that?
Well, I think it's the other way around. I think Spider-Man wanted to take him on, you know.
I see.
And then the two villains team up in here, Luther and Octopus, I think is the one that's Spider-Man. They team up against him, and then they team up against Superman. Well, then it gets to a point in this thing where there's a huge battle ensues between Soupy and Spider-Man, and the kid starts to haul off and wants to clobber him. Yeah. What happens at the end is really interesting.
Okay, don't give it away.
Well, I'll just give you a small hint.
Okay.
He gets Superman mad enough, and he finds his heck with this. He starts to haul off, and then he holds it back at the last second. Well, the vacuum he creates sends this kid goes right through buildings, tanks, trucks, windows, unbelievable.
I know both of the boys have girlfriends, Lois Lane and Mary Jane Watson for the Spider-Man. How did the girls take this new team-up?
Well, they seem to like each other. Lois meets Peter Parker, and Soup meets his girlfriend, and the thing seemed to intertwine nicely. There's a great one in here where they meet this, they go down to these natives in Africa, and Superman says to Spider-Man, "I'll handle this, I can talk their language." And he said, "Have you seen two villains up there in sky?" And the guy says, "You can talk to me in English. I studied in England." And he passes out with this.
We have to get this in. Now, for years, Clark Kent had a job at the Daily Planet. He was ready for retirement almost, but there's been a change in his job. Tell us about it, Carmen.
Yeah. Now, the Daily Planet, like most big companies, have been bought up by conglomerates. So now he's in a conglomerate which features a radio station and a television station. Well, the owner, a guy named Morgan Edge, has taken Clark out of that job, and he said, "I'm putting you in as a TV reporter now." Well, they weren't happy about it, but that's his job. He's got to go where they want him.
And he's a TV reporter.
Now he's a TV reporter, and every time he's on the air, Lois looks at him and says, "Oh, boy, you're no Cronkite."
Yeah. Was there a problem with putting Superman and Spider-Man together? Because Superman was a little square, perhaps, by some standards, compared to Spider-Man.
I think by Spider-Man standards, maybe.
I see, yeah.
I think Superman or Clark is kind of universal. There's something about him that's universal, you know. He's kind of every man. You look at the face, there's really nondescript, you know. So you can relate to him, whatever age limit. Spider-Man, something else. He's a teenager, you know, maybe an overgrown teenager, I don't know. But I think Superman is the embodiment of the Walter Mitty in all of us. Clark is, you know. And when he becomes the great hero, the icon, then he kind of releases whatever the fantasy is in us.
Now, can you fill us in about the new big Superman movie?
Yes.
$15 million
Yeah, it's
budget?
a big production, a real big production. Mario Puzo wrote the script.
And it's the fellow that brought us The Godfather?
That's right,
Yeah.
and it's a humdinger. It really is. I worked with Mario. I got tremendous respect for him. It's a very unusual film. It takes in the exploding of Krypton, the rocket coming to Earth, and I think it's going to be one of the great productions coming in 1977.
Yeah, big name potential
big
for
name
Superman?
potential stars are in that thing. A number have been tossed. Redford's been tossed.
Newman?
My favorite, of course, is Reynolds.
Yeah.
And
Clint Eastwood?
Clint Eastwood has been mentioned, and so has Warren Beatty been mentioned.
Yeah.
But the choice, of course, is up to the producers.
But this is going to be a straight story.
Straight. It's a very straight run. And they feel the potential is stronger that way. Who directed most of
Okay, a big blockbuster. In fact, the magazine is real difficult to get a hold of. They sold out, but they have issues at B. Dalton in Walnut Creek. You might pick it up there. And my favorite for Superman would be Don Knotts. I hope he gets it. Gee, it'd be a break for Don. And that one thing I have to kid the newspaper people again. Clark Kent now works for a television station. And I discovered this about a year ago. Remember George Redding that used to work for us here at TV2? One day I saw him right outside the station changing clothes, and he had a big red S on his T-shirt. In fact, that's why they let George go here, changing clothes out there in the phone booth, but that's another story. George can be seen on Channel 4 now. Okay, coming up we have Target Earth, science fiction film. I have a surprise for you. Something that you see in that film is going to be on our stage here before the show is over tonight. Then we'll be back with a classic, The Werewolf of London, and our special Star Trek guest during the intermission. Okay, let's get the show on the road here.